Brazilian leg bomb.
Outside of any other division, you'd expect with the freaking move.
I don't remember it all, but yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with it, you know. Fair play to Chelsea. Give me, I've got the same dedication, you know. I'm fighting to win for myself, not because she's got less points. Like, I'm winning because I saw on my phone was an interview she did about crushing my dreams.
In 2022, a young British-Bulgarian fighter named Dakota Ditcheva joined the Professional Fighters League, PFL. She was tall, confident, and skilled in striking. Right away, she made a big impression. She won her first 2 fights in the first round, knocking her opponents out with clean, powerful shots. These wins showed the world that Dakota was not just another fighter. She was a serious problem in her division. 1 year later, she entered the PFL Europe tournament, where the final winner would receive a $100,000 grand prize. Dakota wanted more than money. She wanted to prove she was the best. Quarterfinal fight. In the quarterfinals, Dakota faced Malin Hermansson. Many expected a striking match, but Dakota surprised everyone. Instead of just using her punches and kicks, she used grappling. She took Hermansson's back and locked in a rear naked choke, making her opponent tap out. This was the first submission win of Dakota's career. It showed that she wasn't only a striker, she was dangerous everywhere. The semifinal versus Cornelia Holm. Next, Dakota fought Cornelia Holm in Paris. Holm was known as a tough and experienced grappler. She had put many opponents to sleep with chokes and had broken arms in past fights. Holm was confident and even boasted before the fight. "My experience is much bigger than hers. I'll be stronger in the second and third rounds." To Holm, Dakota was just a pretty face, someone who would panic once the fight got tough. But Dakota showed no fear. During the face-off, the tension was clear. Holm tried to intimidate Dakota, but Dakota remained calm and focused. Round 1. The fight began with Dakota using her long reach, throwing jabs and kicks to control distance. Holm quickly tried to take Dakota down because grappling was her strongest area. But Dakota shocked everyone by defending the takedown well. She kept her balance, fought off Holm's grip, and stayed standing. Dakota then started landing sharp knees to Holm's ribs, making Holm feel each impact. Holm tried to tie Dakota up to survive, holding her tight to avoid more damage. The first round ended, but the momentum was shifting toward Dakota. Round 2. At the start of the second round, Dakota launched a smooth and powerful right hand. It connected perfectly. Holm's legs wobbled, and her body reacted like someone whose brain couldn't process what just happened. The commentators said she was doing the chicken dance. Holm tried again to wrestle, grabbing at Dakota's legs to stay alive in the fight. But Dakota refused to just defend. She wanted to show she was the better grappler too. She reversed Holm and took Holm's back, threatening another choke. Holm barely escaped. Dakota allowed her to stand up, almost as if she wanted to finish the fight with strikes instead. Round 3, the finish. Holm entered the final round tired and damaged. Dakota, on the other hand, looked fresh, calm, focused, and ready. Then Dakota threw a clean 1-2 punch combination. The punches landed perfectly. Holm dropped to the floor. Dakota followed with a kick to seal the victory. The fight was over. Dakota celebrated with confidence, performing a celebration pose like footballer Erling Haaland. She had reached the tournament final. The final took place in Dublin, Ireland in December 2023. Dakota faced Valentina Scatizzi, an Italian fighter who believed Dakota was being overrated. Scatizzi thought Dakota was just a Barbie fighter, someone who looked good but lacked toughness. Scatizzi said, "I can't wait to show who the real warrior is. I'm like an animal. I come to smash." During the face-off, Scatizzi tried to scare Dakota, leaning in aggressively. Dakota just smiled and calmly motioned toward the belt, as if it already belonged to her. Dakota wasn't playing games. She had a mission. When the fight started, Scatizzi pushed forward aggressively, trying to overwhelm Dakota with pressure. But Dakota stayed relaxed, stepping backward and throwing perfect counterpunches. When Scatizzi charged, she ran into Dakota's clean right hand and sharp front kick. In the clinch, Dakota used her Muay Thai skills. She gripped Scatizzi's head and began to land devastating knees to the face. These were the same knees she used to finish a previous opponent. The strikes were so clean that the crowd winced each time. Scatizzi, realizing she was in trouble, tried to go for a double-leg takedown. But Dakota's wrestling training showed. She defended the takedown with strength and balance, showing she was not just a striker, she was well-rounded. Dakota then used her long legs to kick Scatizzi's body repeatedly. The sound of the kicks echoed through the arena. When Scatizzi tried to step forward again, Dakota unloaded a fast and powerful two-punch combination right to the head. Then came the knees. And these knees were different. They were thrown with intention, with force, with the desire to end the fight. Scatizzi's face began to swell badly. Her left eye puffed up so much that she could barely see. Dakota noticed this and targeted the swollen eye with precise punches. The damage was brutal. Finally, the ringside doctor stepped in. He examined Scatizzi's eye and immediately stopped the fight. Dakota Ditcheva had won the tournament, the belt, and the $1,000 prize. She danced around the cage with joy. No one could call her just a pretty face again. When the semifinal ended and Dakota had defeated Cornelia Holm, the confidence in her eyes said everything. She did not rush to celebrate, she did not scream, and she did not need to shout about greatness. Her performance already made the statement. She was controlling fights with striking, controlling them in the clinch, and even controlling them in grappling situations, which many believed was Holm's biggest advantage before the fight. Holm had come into the cage believing that her experience in long fights and her wrestling background would be more than enough to slow Dakota down and eventually drown her over 3 rounds. What happened instead was Holm surviving round 1 by hanging on desperately, being shaken badly in round 2 by a clean right hand, and being dropped and finished in the 3rd by a simple combination followed by a kick. Holm's idea that Dakota could not handle deep rounds had been proven wrong. Dakota did not fade. She stayed sharp, fast, and balanced. Holm faded, and Dakota took over. The victory led Dakota to the PFL Europe Final, which was scheduled to take place in Dublin. Her opponent was Valentina Scatizzi, an Italian fighter who was aggressive, physical, and proud of her toughness. Scatizzi did not hide her emotions. She spoke confidently and claimed Dakota was being overhyped because of her appearance. She said Dakota looked like a model and that she would finally show everyone who the real fighter was. During their face-off, Scatizzi tried to stare into Dakota's eyes and intimidate her. Dakota, meanwhile, simply looked calm and relaxed, almost as if she had seen the same attitude hundreds of times before. She raised her hand and motioned for the belt, as if she had already visualized winning it. There was no forced pride or nervous energy in her. She looked like someone who had accepted her victory before the cage door even closed. When the fight began, it was Scatizzi who tried to control the pace. She marched forward aggressively, with her chin lifted slightly and her shoulders tense, ready to force a brawl. Dakota did not meet aggression with aggression. She did what trained, composed fighters do. She stepped back smoothly, keeping her stance steady, and landed straight shots down the middle. Every time Scatizzi pushed forward with force, she walked into a clean right hand or a front kick that snapped her head back. Dakota did not need to rush. She allowed Scatizzi to create her own openings. When Scatizzi closed the distance and tried to tie Dakota up in the clinch, hoping to slow her down or drag her to the ground, Dakota's Muay Thai background became extremely clear. Instead of being controlled, she wrapped her arms correctly around Scatizzi's head and posture and began landing knees directly to the face. These were not rushed knees. They were placed with precision, the kind of strikes that come from years of repeating the same motion during training. Scatizzi tried to change levels and go for a takedown, possibly hoping to avoid taking more damage by bringing the fight to the mat. But Dakota showed once again that her grappling defense had grown to a high level. She dug her hips downward, widened her base, and prevented Scatizzi from completing the takedown. Even with her opponent pushing hard, Dakota remained stable. She circled away and returned to striking range, where she was in full control. Every exchange began to look the same. Scatizzi stepped forward, Dakota landed the cleaner, sharper strike. Scatizzi tried to tighten her guard, but the strikes were coming too fast, and Dakota was reading her reactions with complete clarity. The longer the fight continued, the more obvious the damage became. Dakota was landing punches and knees to the head that were accumulating quickly. Scatizzi's left eye began to swell rapidly. The swelling was not small. It rose and thickened around the socket, blocking her vision. Scatizzi tried to pretend she was not hurt, nodding her head, coming forward again, but each time she stepped forward, Dakota's punches met her cleanly. The movement was efficient, and Dakota did not waste her energy. She did not need wild combinations or dramatic flurries. She used straight punches, well-timed knees, and steady pressure to slowly break down her opponent. The referee watched closely, and the ringside doctor was brought in to examine the swelling. The doctor took one look and understood instantly that continuing the fight would no longer be safe. Scatizzi could not see well enough to defend herself. Her eye was nearly closed, and the damage had reached a point where allowing the fight to go on could risk serious injury. The fight was stopped by medical advice, and Dakota was awarded the victory by TKO. She did not celebrate with arrogance. She simply smiled, walked around the cage, and let the moment happen naturally. When the belt was placed around her waist and the final confirmation of the $1,000 prize was announced, it felt like the complete ending to everything she had worked for that year. Dakota's performance across the tournament was consistent. In every fight, she showed clear improvement. She displayed striking skill, composure, wrestling defense, and finishing ability. She showed she could knock opponents out early. She could handle experienced grapplers. She could fight into later rounds and stay sharp. And she could remain calm even when her opponent tried to turn the match into a chaotic brawl. She also showed that she did not need to speak loudly or insult opponents to win psychological battles. She did that through her presence, her performance, and her ability to stay collected under pressure. Her journey in the PFL Europe season demonstrated not only physical skill, but also professional maturity. She did not rush her attacks, did not lose emotional control, and did not let aggressive opponents pull her into mistakes. Instead, she kept her identity as a clean, calculated striker who uses reach, timing, and accuracy to create damage her opponents cannot recover from. Because of this, fighters who tried to overwhelm her only ended up hurting themselves. They walked straight into the kinds of strikes that Dakota has trained her entire life to deliver. When Dakota left the cage that night with the championship belt, she did not need to prove anything else to the audience. The perception of her had changed. She was no longer underestimated. She was no longer viewed as just a young prospect. She was recognized as a fighter with complete skill, control, and poise. The result of the final did not feel like a surprise. It felt like the natural result of preparation meeting opportunity. Dakota Ditcheva entered PFL Europe to prove that she was more than potential. She walked out as the champion because she executed every part of her game with purpose, precision, and control. She earned the respect of fighters, analysts, and fans not through talk, but through performance. And the final image of her in the cage, calm and composed with the belt on her shoulder, captured exactly who she is. A fighter who knows what she is capable of and who does not need anyone else to validate it.